All right, good morning. How are you guys? I was almost late this morning, just the traffic. It was like actually not so bad the past couple of days, but today, ouch. Okay, well, I hope you're all doing all right. I got the Moodle page up and running last night, and then this morning, as I was gonna show you that, I realized it hadn't been published to you yet. So here it is, as of 2 minutes ago. But it's here. The syllabus is up, and then we have sections for different portions of the course. So take a look here. The slides from Tuesday are here. I emailed them to you. Well, also note that my PhD student Elorm is here. So we did introductions last time. Maybe you can just say hi, and then maybe everybody just with your names, small class. So. Thank you. And let's just go quickly around the name so that Elorm can. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to be launching into kind of the core content of the course in some ways. I'm still doing a little bit of organization for the group projects. I'm going to talk also with the guys at Amigos for Christ about what projects they see as important, and I'm going to then clarify, okay, here's exactly the tasks we can do for our semester projects. The semester project itself, I will put up the instructions here. Essentially what we will do with that is these will be presentation focused, but we might also provide a small report. These will be group projects is my current intent. We could talk about that if you wanted to do something individual, perhaps. But my current intent is to have 2 or maybe 3 groups for a project where you will present. This will be something that you'll have some practice presenting, just introducing each other to your own individual research papers. You'll have a little bit of presentation practice that way, and then group presentations at the end as a project assignment. So we'll have the group projects likely related to the organization and projects in Nicaragua. And then the research paper will be potentially separate. Again, I'm going to do a little more revising of the instructions there, kind of focused on getting the course up, loaded into Moodle first. And these will be semester-long research papers. Mentioned last time, the point is to develop your writing skills for them and also explore a topic that you are interested in for this course, right? I could even go slightly beyond the course. So if you were really passionate about indoor air quality and indoor cook stoves, how that affects, how to provide some intervention in a developing context, talk to me and I'll probably give you the thumbs up for that. Because it relates to environmental technology in developing countries, kind of a context. So I'm open to some revisions. We'll talk a little more about that as I go through the slides today, but I'm open to, if you have some passion, some specific interest, that we can go that route. Otherwise, I may give some project concepts or ideas that you can kind of work from, select one, and go from there. Okay, and that brings us to what we're doing today. Is we're going to take a look at the foreword in our book. I'll give you a few minutes. We'll kind of read that together for some discussions. There will also be some more. There are also already some more resources up here and a few other things that I plan to share. If you decide you'd like to follow along in class on a device, usually I'll have the notes posted here on the Moodle page. So these are exactly what we'll be going through here. And later I will update that with the notes that I took will be here. The next time we're going to talk about what I'm calling the calculus of opportunity. So today we're defining what is development, what is global health, what is this that we're doing, what is the water and wastewater treatment for in a kind of a wider context, and how do we consider how that helps people, and how do we motivate that, and how do we kind of look at that on a global scale. So then that means next time we're going to talk about the how development occurs, thinking a little bit about it mathematically, and thinking about how to promote it. Then we'll have a lecture on, or a discussion session on, ethics of intervention. So the first 2 weeks, really, first 4 lectures are not exactly water treatment yet. Okay, so we're just kind of getting a wider picture, things that hopefully we can come back and think about and discuss. Okay, should we be trying to drill a well here? Is that really the most ethical thing to do? And who gets to decide that? Gives us some groundwork to think about the problems in that way. Okay, after that we're going to dive into more water and wastewater. I think we'll start with the water treatment technology. Okay, so I just wanted to give you that bit of a background. I'm going to pull this up. We'll probably read this together in a couple minutes. So we've got the Moodle page live. I'm going to be, like I said, working on these research and paper topics. Do you have any thoughts or opinions yet on what you'd like to do for projects or research papers? Probably not yet, right? Okay, yeah, we haven't really talked much about the topics yet, but oops. But if something catches your attention, if you realize you've always kind of wanted to explore something, if you've always had some passion for a particular location or a particular problem or challenge, as we start working through these, make a mental note. Bring it up in class. Consider, okay, maybe I'd like to study arsenic in India or something, right? I don't know if you noted or you heard about it, but there was a massive mudslide in the Tibet, India-China border area, caused a whole lot of problems, right? And it essentially caused a massive flash flood in this valley. I think many people died. Big disaster. So, what could be done, or what is the best response for water and sanitation after a disaster like that? There's a lot of potential things you could consider. Okay. So, any impression on would you like me to assign you a task, or give you like a very specific direction like that, or do you want to just go and explore and find your own topic? Probably a mix if there's, but how many of you would prefer if I just told you what to do? A little bit, okay. And how many of you like the idea of going and finding your own topic? Okay, good. So I will give you freedom for sure, but I'll also give you a few specifics in case you'd rather just feel like, okay, just give me something specific, right? Okay, so we'll do a bit of both. Last time I taught the class, everybody was more so on closer to number 1. This time it looks like a little more of a mix, maybe even closer to number 2. So I will provide some specific tasks, in part as an example of what you can design your own research paper topic to look like, and also to kind of give some food for thought there. Okay, fantastic. So let's start talking about what is development. And when I say development, it's for the, oh yeah.
Were you thinking that we or a specific
I'm going to give a little more guidance on that, but I'm open to either, because you could take, I mentioned arsenic in India or something. You could take arsenic in Bangladesh and then dive into that. And when I'll bring up the prior year's rubric for this. What I want for the paper is for you to make an investigation to see, okay, what is the challenge? What is the problem? What are the possible solutions for something? And how do some of the other things we've talked about in class, whether it's social dynamics, economics, ethics, how do some of those things play into it? So it's going to require some research into technology, into the science and engineering of it. It's going to take hopefully some input into potentially culture or things like that. And that might help if you have a specific location, but you could also keep it general. So in the past, I haven't demanded either way, but I think it often helps if you do have a specific location. So, yeah. They're going to be separate, but I don't mind if there's some tie-in. Maybe if we're working on the electrolyzer system, we'll talk more about in Nicaragua, and kind of thinking about, is that economically sustainable? I don't mind if somebody's working on an electrolyzer type of a research project. Could it treat XYZ somewhere else or something like that? So I don't mind if there's some overlap, but these will be kind of separate issues. So this is the rubric and instructions that I plan to revise. This is what I gave last time. So you have some deadlines and things. And what essentially the deadlines consist of, you're going to select a topic and then present that to the class, just as like, here's what I'm going to study. It's a first moment of practicing presentation skills. We'll have a thesis statement within a paragraph. That'll be the next deadline, is to have that draft, get some feedback from that. A draft paper due later in the semester. This was last time I thought it was spring, so the dates are, again, I'm going to revise all that. And then the final paper due kind of finals week or just before. And the draft paper, essentially, you're going to get feedback on probably what's approximately half of the paper status. The instructions, generally, this is a research paper, so I'm asking you to use proper formatting for citations, proper research. Just some basics, about 4 to 6 pages. In the past, I set it up this way. Can do a bit more if you wanted to. Some minimum number of sources. I'm suggesting you use EndNote as a way to manage the sources, and I will give a kind of a help session on how to use that. What is that software? Why am I recommending it? Why is it so convenient? And I expect it to read like a scientific report by the end of it. At the first, maybe we'll need some revisions and all that. That's part of it. Okay, gave some other instructions, and then I had some themes identified, and I wanted, and this, again, maybe I'm going to revise this a little bit, kind of answers your question. I have it in mind that you cover at least a few of these themes, right? It could be legal or government or policy, how that's important. Could be the culture or religion, how that's important. Technology and infrastructure, geographical components, economical, perhaps history, or legacy of these features, ethics. So I don't think any one paper has to cover everything. That would probably take like 20 pages to do a good, solid report on something like that. But if you take 2 or 3 of these, you can analyze a particular challenge and solution in a pretty well-rounded way. So I plan to revise this. What I will probably say is maybe require some baseline technology that you describe, and then add in these contexts, perhaps. So I'm gonna just revise it a bit, but you can expect something a lot like that. For the grading, I have a standard rubric to give. Is it excellent quality? Is it unacceptable? And the general categories are integration of knowledge, topic focus, depth of discussion. I'm going to post this as soon as I revise, and then you'll have all this spelling and grammar and the sources that you're using. So those are kind of the categories, and typically I'll take a read and I'll rank them 1 through 5 based on all that, and then score accordingly. Okay, so that's what you can expect. Once I revise that, I'll post that by next week at some point, and that'll be your individual paper. Last time, again, pending revisions, I gave some potential topics. So I suggested, okay, how about predicting groundwater quality? This was topical to Nicaragua a bit, but open to kind of anywhere. So contaminants given certain challenges, ion exchange removal, or ion removal or exchange as another technology topic, alternatives to septic tanks, where considering if aeration is possible in a certain context, advanced pit latrines, some things like that. I want to add a little bit more and make this a little wider, so right now just treat this as just some context of the type of challenges or type of things we could consider. Okay? All right. So more on that when I get it finalized and posted for you. Any other questions for now? All right. Okay, so development. And when we talk about how do we make a difference in the world, what are we really talking about? What is the goal of international development? This is a question for you. What comes to mind? Quality of life. Okay. Alarm. Got it. Okay. That's a good way to summarize for sure. But what goes into that? What aspects? Let's say we want to improve it, right? Okay, infrastructure. And what comes to mind when you think infrastructure? Excellent. And what do those provide? Somebody else can answer this time. What do you get if you have good roads? You get to campus on time, hopefully, right? Practically, what does that do for you? Hmm? Yeah. Right. Right. So makes life easier. There's actually a lot in that, right? So we said jobs. I mentioned education, getting to school. So just the roads can do that, and getting to hospitals or doctors and stuff. So you need roads for a lot, and making life easier. Well, what is life, right? I'm going very broad here on purpose, and as you see the next questions too, right? So, what about life is easier if you can drive somewhere or bike somewhere instead of walk, right? Or saves time, yeah. So a lot of this is saving time. Saves lives, yep. I mean, even having a path to walk on is better than having to tromp through a jungle, right? So, yeah, convenience. What else? So, mhm. You can get to your job, therefore you can make some money, you can be productive. Productivity. You could sometimes even think about being productive doesn't always tie to money, although it often does. If you are simply, uh, have the time to tend your garden, right, or something, it could make an aesthetic impact, make your life better, potentially, right? And so, what is the goal? We're increasing these things. I guess the goal is just simply to make life better, essentially. Um, what else goes into that? Okay. So, and do you have anything in mind about that, or just in general? Okay. Mm-hmm. And that gets to human dignity, right? To provide, the quality of life and development. Um, we talk about saving time and lives, but also, we can see that uh, preserving basic human rights and human dignity are really a part of a lot of that too. Right? What else can we say about it? If we are thinking about, let's say, writing a book, taking a course, engaging in philanthropy or in service, the goal is that we see some difficulty in the world, some people that are hurting or are impoverished, in need. So then the goal is to, make some impact. But what else can we say about that impact? What else do we want to happen? Yeah. Exactly. Let's get some new voices. What would it take to have a sustainable impact? Right? And that helps because the people that are impacted then are able to be educated, and then what happens from there? Mm-hmm. Exactly. Continuation and even and propagating even. Okay, what else? What other thoughts here? Anything else? We named a lot of infrastructure, but actually there's still one or two pieces that we could say are missing, and then there's some other core needs for humanity that we didn't touch on just yet. All interconnected and related, but what else do you see in your own daily life? What do you need every day? Okay, there's another good one for infrastructure. And energy in general, right? We could say electricity, energy. Okay, that's I like that as a target of something that you know a developed situation would have, right? And I don't know how many of you know what she means when she says a third space. A few of you, yes. Some of you know. Explain what you mean by that. So what are the first two spaces? This is how I understand it. The first two places that where you spend most of your life is one is your home and two is your job. So those are the first two spaces, and then a third space is where are you? Where can you spend time and do your life where that's not one of those two places, right? And so that's how I've understood the third place concept is somewhere to do something enjoyable. And in fact, you will probably find some anecdotes or you'll have heard some before where some even water treatment interventions have disrupted third spaces by accident, right? So there have been, and maybe it was Alarm, you might have been talking to me about this. I remember hearing some stories about uh, some intervention was made to have a centralized well or like a distribution system where water is distributed now to different homes, but it disrupted a communal activity of going to gather water. And I think it was a woman would typically go and meet there and have a conversation and figure out what's going on in the village and whatever. It was actually very important. And when you disrupt that, you just removed a third space by providing clean water. It's an interesting tension, right? It's not that that's inherently bad, but there's okay. Well, how do we make that how do we not get rid of something good, right? Something that's beneficial. Okay, so I like that concept of a third space, and perhaps one thing we could say is the goal of development, in part, would be to allow people to have the time and space where they're not just trying to survive, so that they could enjoy a third place or a third aspect of their life. In fact, one thing I really admire about the organization in Nicaragua is that their approach, despite them being religious, is purposefully not overtly religious. What they aim for is to help communities develop to the point where they have the freedom to explore religion, right? So that they are no longer stressed by finding food, water, and things like that, so that they can explore it. And of course, they have their own mission of being an example and trying to make an impact that way. But their goal there, I find to be, and their implementation, I think that's quite a positive because it's aiming at something kind of like this, that level of prosperity, so that they would have the ability to. Okay, what else do you need every day? Food, yes. So food is another big one. It's not quite infrastructure, but I guess it ties quite into health. So food, and of course, sanitation is also part of water and infrastructure. I'm just going to write it a little scattered here. But okay. Anything else? Anything surprising? Okay, so we've used, we said the word good a bit. So we're trying to do some good, I guess you might say, right? We're trying to do something good for people to improve their lives. What does that mean? What does good mean? Not bad, okay. Okay. Does it have to be people that need help? Maybe especially. Okay. So a good act might be something that is with the intent of helping somebody else, so that in a way that's irrespective of yourself, right? We could say, so then maybe an action with others' benefit in mind, maybe. Okay. So we could say good is some sort of a moral. What about morality? It definitely ties into morality, right? And it ties into, and perhaps some people might think of what is good a little differently than others because of morality. Um, so maybe it's some moral act where you're um, so are you trying to say that like good is something that is virtuous on a moral basis? Is that kind of way? Okay. So maybe we can say it's morally defined in many cases, right? Are there any cases where it's not a moral thing, or it's maybe we could say it's self-evident that perhaps everybody should consider, or we'd expect anybody in society in interacting with each other should take as self-evident. Right. So there's a corruption of the good morals, right? There is a way to abuse that, or to commandeer the reputation, right? So that so we would almost say uh, in the not category, not just the grandstanding or the for show, right? So we can recognize that people do that often because there is some shared vision of what is good or what has been a positive, but sometimes people will say, "Oh, everybody thinks that's good. I'm going to go pretend to be that, right? I'm going to go brag, and whatever." So it's not exactly that. Yeah. Okay. Great. So that's a very good limitation here because I might think to myself, well, Matthew really might like a chocolate bar, and you have a chocolate bar. I'm going to take that, give it to him. I just did something good, you know. But what he just pointed out is that's not good. I just stole from one person to do something good for somebody else. That's not so good, right? Um, so this has to be confined. Um, and again, this is a bit of a knot here. So with uh, 1 second, without harming others, we'll say yes. It's a good question, right? So, and this really is kind of getting to rights in some way, if we and taxation, which is why we're taking an approach to the course like, is it okay to take my money so that you have water? As a society, we've agreed that that's okay, in the sense where some of my taxes go to water infrastructure for you to have water, and vice versa. But we've agreed that in certain circumstances with certain limits, that's a good thing. Uh, but we clearly have to be quite careful, right? Um, and you might consider you know, some people, let's say criminals, for example, often have much of their liberties stripped from them as punishment. Okay, and so some of those liberties, in that case, maybe societies and governance have decided that that's okay to take some things from them, maybe to extract free labor as a kind of a redemption punishment type of situation, right? So in that case, maybe so. Some people might argue that if somebody has X amount of money, then you should just be able to take it from them. Don't think that's a very well morally grounded way, but some people think that way, right? Okay, what else? We can define it a bit about what it's not. Looking for the net positive for others, or people in general, and perhaps things that promote prosperity, right? Which, of course, begs the question, what is prosperity? We'll get there. And what our answers to the previous question about what is the goal of development, we see pretty much almost all of this as ambitions to do good in some way, right? And so perhaps we can see that if we reflect back upwards, we can see that it's a good thing when people are able to work, to have education, to be healthy, to spend time the way they want to. One thing I meant to write up here under the infrastructure as well would be shelter. Some of the things we recognize are obvious, so obvious that we didn't think about it, right? To have shelter, to have food and access to healthcare. So what exactly is prosperity then? Kind of defined it in our. How would you simplify that? Okay, needs met. Okay, yeah, and I like that because I was about to say yes, but even like ideally, the proper treatment of a prisoner gets their needs met, right? But so we want something more, but that is definitely part of it. So the ability, where's it go? The ability, or maybe even agency. He said to decide on what you want to do. Yeah. I'll just say fun, just to simplify it. One other thing under the sustainable impact, I just said the word agency. I think that's a huge one for whenever anybody goes from a state where they needed help to then having that help. A critical part of the sustaining that is for them to have the agency to be able to carry that forward themselves. So what else about prosperity? What else strikes you as common themes in all that? Okay, I like that. So to take away freedom is in some way to take away from prosperity. To take away your ability to decide on what you want to do with your time, that as well. And you're definitely not prosperous if your needs aren't met, your basic needs. Anything else? A lot of people simplify it and say money. Okay, so that's the cheap way to define it, right? But what what really is that doing for you if you, let's say, what's the common denominator? If you have, for example, a house with running water, electricity, a nice kitchen, dishwasher, laundry machine, dryer, air conditioning. What's the difference between that and a house where you can cook stuff and you can find water, but none of it's automated? Mm-hmm. And how would you describe the impact on your daily life? Convenience is a lot of it, right? And what, in that sense, what is convenience? Would it be more convenient for you to have come to campus by, like, I don't know, helicopter or something? Might be fun. For speed, it saves time, right? So if you spend 3 hours a day cleaning stuff, cleaning laundry and then hanging it up to dry, and cleaning dishes and cleaning the cookware that you used, versus 3 hours a week, it's a lot of time saved, right? So in some way, we can define prosperity, the ability to spend the time like we want, a lot like this ability to make the decisions, and the time is definitely a part of that. So I'm going to come back to this concept about defining it as time saved. We're going to read the foreword to this book today, and I'm going to try to get the copy of the foreword to another book that was on our syllabus, The Rational Optimist. And that's where I got this concept from, is prosperity as time saved. Because you can, in some way, tie so much to it. And I might be ahead of myself here, apologize if so, but living a healthy life, you have more time where you're able to do what you want with it, right? Having a washing machine saves you time so you don't have to do it manually, right? Having a dishwasher so you don't have to do it manually. A lot of things we could think about as saving time, and you see it was mentioned already, right? Had it right here. That's a good way to define it, because if you have electricity, or let's say a gas stove, that's a lot less time taken than if you had to do a wood stove, wood fire, and go gather the wood and start the fire and all that. Okay, so we mentioned a couple times health here, and of course, when we come back to thinking about water and wastewater treatment, that's generally tied to health, right? We need good water so we can have good health. And we often hear the term global health. So that's the next question: is what does global health mean? And we'll take a look at this foreword, and it's talking about global health. Any thoughts up front? What is global health? Yeah. Okay. I like that. And equal basis, like equal access or opportunity for healthcare, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Any other thoughts? Mm-hmm. Okay, so improving. So as part of healthcare, we might say the improvements to health, right, and practices that promote health. So not just the care aspect where you go to a physician or something, but also the pieces that go into just simply improving health on all sorts of dimensions. Whether that's sanitation or hygiene or many factors. We'll just okay. All right, we already kind of did the prosperity brainstorm. I was ahead of myself indeed, and my takeaway is like really I think time saved is a good way to describe it. Any other thoughts on that? Do you like that, the time saved definition? Maybe not. What? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sometimes it's a little harder to square with I thought it just meant having a yacht, or whatever. Um, it, and maybe it's a little bit of mental gymnastics to say, okay, well, you now have the time. If you have that much money, you have the time to spend on a yacht, and you can fly your private jets. You don't have to wait on whatever. So it's maybe some mental gymnastics, but I think for a lot of things it does work, or you can do the mental gymnastics. But any other critiques of that as a prosperity? Does it miss anything? Right, right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Totally get it. Yeah. Right. And if you think about it, if you could make the same case for you could just get some microwave dinner from the store, but you decide to cook it and spend time on that to make it better, right? To have something that's a better quality. So what you might say, if you're going to argue that this is the way, you might say, okay, well, you have the prosperity to make that decision. Like you were saying earlier, how do you want to spend your time? You want to spend it in a way that's getting you the product, the food that you want. Okay, it's a little bit like it's funny because you can really wrestle with it, but there's always some way to convince yourself that it kind of makes sense. Yeah, yeah, and so you could pay somebody to use the gas stove, right? No, and it's actually really helpful to think about it that way because you realize, okay, if you think about it in that framework, to become prosperous is to be able to pay somebody for that, or to have that access so that you're not the one doing it yourself. That concept, what I would say is probably the explanation to why historically slavery existed. Because to be prosperous was to not spend your own time on something, but to have somebody else spend it. And if we didn't have as much money and productivity, not at all saying that was a good thing, but that it's that if that was how to be prosperous and there were prosperous people, okay, that explains in some extent why it has been pretty much in just about every society in the past. So as we think about how to move away from that type of situation, how to improve people's lives, perhaps even we can think about how to improve situations where it feels like a day job almost feels like you're a slave working for minimum wage, right? It's interesting to think about, okay, well, what does it take to go beyond and to go above? I think this is getting into some of the things we're going to talk about next time. But that time saved for you, and coming back to what we were talking about earlier, what is good cannot be taken away from somebody else, right? So slavery cannot be good. You're taking away somebody's liberties, taking away their time for your profit, your prosperity, right? That's clearly not good. Um, okay, but there is a question there. Can it be a good thing to pay somebody interested in working for you a small amount of money, right? A lot of uh, um, debate and potential controversy about minimum wage, things like that. Um, I'll even make it more controversial. Child labor. Okay. What if a 14-year-old wants to mow my lawn? I don't actually have a lawn right now, but if I did, or when I did, um, is it okay that he wants to do it for $5, right? And it takes him an hour, less than minimum wage, but a great opportunity for him because then he can go and use that money, right? There's a question there. Is that good? Clearly, it's not good if it's forced labor or if this is like a abusive situation or like child labor things. There's good reasons for child labor laws, but there's also a question about, okay, could it be a good thing to provide somebody young with an opportunity to make just a bit that they could grow and use that experience to get a better job later, and progress in the world, right? To start somewhere. Is it a good thing to have at least some job, even if it's cheap and not paid well, for somebody who had no other opportunity, right? So there's a lot of questions about what is the opportunity there. That's next week's topic. Okay, anything else about prosperity? Any other ways time saved just doesn't cut it? In some ways, I usually think of family and friends. I could still justify it with time saved because you can spend the time how you want with those people, but it is the social connections, time saved probably doesn't exactly deliver, right? Family and friends. So the social, more spiritual aspects of life, yes, you can say you can spend more time with it, but to have a special friend or partner or whatever, that really, I would argue, can be part of prosperity. And you can try to lump it into just time saved so you can spend time with that person, but I think there's maybe something deeper there. So it's not perfect. Maybe it relates to it, but anything else? All right. I have a little picture of an automated vacuum cleaner here because it can potentially save you time. I actually got rid of mine, gave it to my parents because it was not saving me time. I have a dog that has a lot of long hair, and the vacuum would keep getting kind of stuck with it. And so basically, I was babysitting the vacuum as it tried to go every other day or whatever and makes way too much noise and annoying me, bouncing around everywhere and making my dog like this. He'd always just be like, eat that again, going away. Turns out it just saves me a lot of time to use a proper vacuum cleaner once a week and just do the job, and takes 15 minutes for my little apartment that I've got right now, and that's fine. So no problem. Whereas I was spending felt like hours cleaning up after that thing and trying to get it to run. But in theory, it would save me time, right? And so that's kind of the concept. All right. So we talked a bit about global health already. Let me just bring back a couple of the ideas I guess what I meant to do is go for development and then go to each slide about these. But anyway, so healthcare for everybody and improving health were the things we've mentioned so far. So here for all with kind of an equal basis is what we said. Plus improving health in general or preventing bad health, things like good water and sanitation. For global health, any other thoughts before we jump to our forward. Okay, so having, in some way, the technology, we might be able to call that like infrastructure, so healthcare infrastructure. We'll say technology. And I guess I like technology because it can go beyond just infrastructure, right? It could be access to a vaccination or something like that, right? Any other thoughts? Yeah. Okay. So education around around healthcare topics. Like that. Okay. So if you think of something else, we'll come back to this for sure, but we can dig into it more. Let's take a look. And again, I said last time I forgot to bring it, but here's our book for the course that I'm recommending you get a copy. And at the very first few pages, we have a foreword from Jimmy Carter. And so I'd like to give you a few minutes to read this. Go ahead and read it on your own, and maybe I'll read it out loud. So we'll kind of have a second run through it. I'll scroll to the bottom in a minute. It's just one page, so it's not much longer than what's showing on the page. So go ahead and read it, and I'll shut up. All right, all set? So, seems like we did a pretty reasonable job matching that definition. We're going to go ahead and I'll read this out loud. So, peace falls under the general umbrella of many things: freedom, democracy, human rights, the alleviation of suffering, and the improvement of environmental quality and health. Yet it is global health that connects us all. So it's interesting that he's saying something about peace. And by the way, we didn't mention much about the environment, except for water, water and shelter. Right? And then, a lot of good things about peace, and then he's saying, well, but it's global health that's connecting us. So global health then can be found in a small child in Mali learning to wash her hands, prevent the spread of diarrheal disease. It appears in the work of a community erecting a water storage tank in the mountains of Honduras, or village members pouring concrete slabs used for latrines in Timor-Leste. Global health is also present in groups of women constructing more efficient cooking stoves in Asia that not only reduce indoor air pollution, but also make better use of scarce tree resources. From these seemingly simple beginnings, global health broadens its reach to affect the prosperity and stability of whole nations, whether empowering communities to better educate and provide for themselves, stopping a rapid outbreak of illness, preventing famine, or eliminating socially and economically devastating diseases. Having access to the basic needs of water, sanitation, hygiene, and shelter are issues of human rights, not just issues of development and engineering. Providing these basic rights in a sustainable manner is critical if we are to improve the health among the poorer people afflicted with disease, people who are often isolated, forgotten, ignored, and without hope. If you examine engineering closely, it's about solving problems. Engineering is also tied to eradicating poverty and disease, just as much as it is tied to planning, design, and construction. One key, though, is to provide engineers and others with resources they understand. Did I skip? So they understand the beneficial use of appropriate technology. This type of technology is developed and deployed with ongoing input from local communities to accommodate economic, social, environmental, and cultural conditions unique to each locale. Such an approach holds greater promise of fostering healthy communities and reducing gender inequalities. One principle of the Carter Center is that people can improve their lives when provided the necessary skills, knowledge, and access to resources. What is special about this book is that it provides all of these so that people can improve their lives of their families, communities, and countries. I am proud to see so much of the knowledge in this book created by those who served the U.S. Peace Corps, water sanitation engineers. Many do not know that my mother served in the Peace Corps as a volunteer. Like the child in Mali, she has been an inspiration to me. Only after global health is improved will we be all connected in a world of peace and equality. Okay, so if we achieve global health, then peace and equality is everywhere. Interesting. Okay. Any thoughts? Anything that strikes you as particularly interesting or? Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. What else? What do you think about making it distinct from peace, but then tying it back to peace? That's kind of odd to me. Yeah. It felt a little fantastical to say once we achieve global health, whatever exactly that is, he didn't really define it. Just said it was like a child, or it can be found in a child, right? And can be found in these circumstances, right? Um, so, but certainly connected to peace, and we can see that if there's a lack of health, there's perhaps famines, perhaps droughts, perhaps whatever. Those tend to lead towards fighting for resources or more issues with that. So in some way, it's connected to peace, although maybe not so directly. Do you feel like that Forward did any better job defining it than we did? Same notes, but didn't really give it a clear definition. And about the same as what we said. Mm-hmm. Like that. And what about culture? Just cultural aspects that tie into health? Solutions, possibly challenges or dynamics? Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. Oops. Sorry. Forgot. Okay. So we talked about what is good already. We had some debate about that. Is world peace a good goal? Of course, obviously, right? What makes it a good goal? We don't want people killing each other, right? more lives saved, right? Is it reasonable? Anybody have a better answer than that? Because I don't know if one would exist, right? Okay. Great question. Yeah. What even is that? Does that mean every household is at peace with each other and every country, or is it just the countries? Is it the gangs in a city? Is it, what is world peace? Are we just saying, a non-religious form of heaven? Do we want heaven, right? What exactly is this? Is it, reasonable? Yeah, I really like Josie's answer there. No, let's keep trying. When the forward says, and I do need to wrap up, I'm a little running my mouth here, says we will all be connected. So only after global health is improved, we don't know how much. If it's improved by 1 ounce, then we'll get it. How much? We will then, only after that, we will be connected in a world of peace and equality. Okay. So there's a big question there. Is it really health that prevents us from having peace and equality? And does that mean that if we could snap our fingers and make it happen, should we? Right? Is that the way? Because if you're advocating for peace and equality to make everybody equal, okay, I am all for improving equality, improving equal access. Yeah. Yep. Right. Right. It's a very good point. Everybody, and we even touched on that with the what is good, and people have different moral views, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be the smarter approach to improving health, right? It's a very good point. Yeah, maybe we'll just say maybe backwards and not forward. Okay. Um, Kind of about out of time, but I'll just quickly mention it's kind of interesting to go to Wikipedia, and this time I even went to Grokipedia, I guess it's called, just to look at what they said was global health, and see if they were different. Because one's an AI thing that's just crawled the web and gathered it into one place, and the other is people that have been editing this and deciding what they think is the thing. There's a couple things that I want to come back to next time and touch on this probably. Oops, sorry. But what's interesting is that, and this is what we'll talk about, is this mentions that global health is not to be confused with international health. Okay. And international health is defined as a branch of public health focusing on the developing nations and foreign aid efforts by industrial countries. So all this talk about global health, and yet Wikipedia at least says, oh, this shouldn't be confused with what we're actually trying to do. So kind of interesting food for thought. And then as we think back on this stuff, we can think about this conversation about equity versus equitable, and how we make it happen, and what we're trying to promote here with our interventions, right? What are we doing to lead to prosperity, and how do we do that in a way that can be sustained and can be done without the Thanos, without taking away from somebody else, right? It's not appropriate to kill somebody to have a better share of resources, right? Thanos. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but that's why we have movies, right? It's to play with extreme examples without actually doing it. So we have a few things to think about there. I'd like to take the last 5 minutes to touch base with anybody that's planning to go on the Nicaragua trip. We need to have that paperwork done. Bought my tickets, so we're going. So assuming you buy yours. It's October 24th through the 31st. And I've been told by the organization we have to have our passport scans and flight tickets this week. So we need to also talk about potential, if you're coming, what the logistics would look like, and the visa situation, or all that stuff. But we can talk. Yeah.